there are more restrictions with A and CP.
Yeah.
But they were, and I mean, look, you hear. We're gonna just talk about this again, so. All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Adem Bria. I'm the Chair of the Housing Committee. I'm gonna call the meeting to order. It is March 4th, 2025 at 6:46 PM. Angel, you do roll before I do anything, right? Take the roll, please. Thank you.
Members, when I call your name, please answer. President, Adem Bria,
Present.
David Giordano. Present. John Green. Tina Johnson,
Present.
Wilfredo Lopez. Present. Jessica Morris,
Here.
Beverly Pavon,
Present.
Cynthia Ramos,
That's perfect.
Don Thompson,
Yeah, she too, I think it's gotta take that outside.
Here.
Loretta So. Candy Rivers Vasquez.
No, that's.
Oh.
Here.
Yeah.
Okay, I think ground rules.
Can I
now?
ask? I'm so sorry. Did you get me, Angel? I'm sorry. This is
Yes,
Dawn.
yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, I need this. You have them on the screen?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, the ground.
You don't know.
Some people have the script, I just do it here. One, no one may speak until granted the floor. Two, CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. To raise your hand through Zoom, click the participants icon and you will find the raise hand function there. Members should not engage in a back and forth discussion. The chair will recognize the next person to speak. Please keep your questions and comments brief and on topic to the discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subjects on the agenda, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. All right, so I called the meeting in order. We did roll call. If we'll adopt the agenda unless there are any objections. Seeing no objections, then this month's agenda has been adopted. I did not do the minutes for February. So I will have them, I'm gonna have them to Angel by the end of the week, so we'll just adopt those at next month's meeting. And then, all right, we'll go into me. So you see, there's not much of an agenda, but there are things to talk about. And you're all welcome to chime in and we'll have a discussion. I think the first thing I'll start with is, I know I emailed everybody about it, but we did a walkthrough of Wagner houses this Saturday. Christina, who just stepped out for a minute, joined me on that walkthrough with their tenant leader, Diane Lopez. We did about a 2.5 hour walkthrough. I mean, I'm sure all you're familiar with Wagner, but that's by far our biggest NYCHA development, and you really realize that as you walk through it. And I learned a lot, like I thinking, and we have in the other walkthroughs gone into units of tenants and this and that, that's challenging and, you don't want to just like be invasive, like, oh, hey, can we go? So we just walked the common areas and there was enough there to kind of get started with. Diane is great. She's kind of doing a lot. It makes you wonder how people, are willing to just volunteer their time. I mean, you know, there's 2,200 apartments there. And it's like a team of 3 people on that, like, that are really kind of running all that. You know, and then you hear like, they can get a stipend, and then I just out of curiosity, like, what is the stipend for this? It's like $2,000 a year. I mean, how these people aren't being paid like full-time salary, that's another point. That's something else to get to. But we walked the common grounds, and one of the things I asked her was, so I don't know if you're all familiar, but you know, you have the part by 120th by Pleasant Avenue, and then you go across to First and Second. And what I noticed, and I don't think it's a coincidence, was a lot of the grounds on between First and Second were a lot better. They're a lot more exposed. They're a lot more in the open. The NYCHA has some offices there, so they kind of keep everything okay. But if you go to part where Pleasant Avenue is, things get a lot worse. Some of us went on the Washington houses, walked through, and we saw how some of the ground was like chewed up and this and that. Well, that was nothing compared to what I saw on Saturday. If you even go by 124th where the public pool is, if you were a senior or somebody in a wheelchair who usually, you cannot walk down that block. You just can't. It's how the city can have a sidewalk like that. If you were a private owner of a building, you couldn't get insurance. They ticket you every day. They'd send someone to give you tickets, but they don't fix their own sidewalks, right? Then there's the issue, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this, with the street lights on traffic lights on 120th. You know, I'm by no means an expert on transportation or anything, but there are 3 schools there. It's a 3-way intersection. They've been asking for a traffic light for quite some time. And I'm gonna get into, and then you're all welcome to raise your hand, talk anytime you want. We don't even have to raise your hand, you can just talk, we're having a conversation. But I reached out to Jose, who was the public safety chair, and he's my good friend. So I said, hey, listen, I was on this walkthrough, traffic light. He said, yeah, that was something this committee had brought up, public safety, and it kind of just, you know, I guess fell by the wayside or whatever, things happened, this and that. So he said that he's gonna reach out and look into that. My idea is if like we could get some traction there to start with a traffic light, or whatever. I just want them to see these tenant leaders that they could go back and say, okay, you know what, there was a walkthrough, there's results, there's follow-up, and Diane was wonderful. I told her, you know, I can't promise how many people will come to walkthroughs, but I told her I'd be happy to go there like every month. Maybe I have a particular affinity for there because I live right there. I grew up right there. That's right where I am, you know, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know, it's obviously all our neighborhood, but that is literally where I am every day, right there. So I mean, I just told her, I'll just show up. Like she goes, call me. I'm like, all right, I'll come on the weekends and just keep walking. Go ahead. Oh, were you raising your hand?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I know from my time in public safety and some other involvement in beyond Wagner's grounds. There was a big focus on the map, which was a sort of grassroots public safety initiative to make the campus feel safer, including some capital improvements. There's a basketball court that recently renovated, part of that map initiative. So I think the capacity building aspect of what had gone on the ground at Wagner is a model for kind of great activity. And, you know, it's probably testament to what you noticed where there's sort of more love in certain areas of the grounds than in others. So
Yeah.
there's a lot, I'm just saying there, you know, beyond just the tenant leader, and I think she's been involved there.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I'm going off the walkthrough that I had, and like the basketball court, I know the one you're talking about that they said was renovated. It looks like they just painted an old court. I mean, if, you know, I'm being honest, like, you see where, you know, if you went to another neighborhood and they said that they renovated a basketball court, they would not call that a renovation, but here that's called a renovation. You know, you have 2,200 apartments. I'm there on a Saturday morning. I'm like, they were talking about a community facility for the youth. There was money there. The mayor changed his mind, pulled the funding, and now it's sitting empty. And then I was thinking about you, David, on my walkthrough, like you and Asher, and I was thinking about if 2,200 apartments there, it's a Saturday. I don't see anywhere for kids to do anything. We went to what is supposed to be. It was, there were 2 kids, right, in there, and they were just like I think it was their parent behind the desk and they were sweet little kids, but they were just entertaining themselves. They had,
Right.
there was no programming that I saw. Now, I don't know who's to blame for that, or I just know
But it
that
is a community.
there is, it's tiny, right?
Yeah, it's very tough.
There's two computers for 2,200 apartments.
But even so, here's a Saturday and it was absolutely nothing.
There was no
going on.
programming. You know, you have this new
Nothing happened.
basketball court, right? Where's the, look, I understand there comes an age, you know, because we've all been to age, right? Where maybe if this stuff wasn't happening, it's hard to get certain age groups interested out of nowhere. But you can get 5 or 6 year olds interested at a young age. You can shape them that way. So you fix the basketball court, but what incentive is there to get anybody out there to use it? It was empty, right?
Yeah, it was.
A lot of the playground spaces have been converted to just storage of like these big giant bins that are sitting there. So I hear what you're saying, and it's more than the tenant leaders, but I think sometimes it's hearing what's been done and then just walk, and I think this is the thing about the walkthroughs, is I've sat in a lot of meetings where I'm like, oh, that sounds good. Oh, yeah, and then you go and you walk and you're like, but this isn't actually what's happening in practice. Yeah, go ahead, you were there, so.
Yeah, so just speaking as a resident leader, right? I get a lot of flack from people saying that, you know, you never do anything, right? But it's not, like Adam said, it's not at least I'm gonna say, for me, it's not me, right? Because I write grants and I talk to everybody at NYCHA. I send emails up the wazoo, right? I mean, just constantly reaching out to NYCHA to do something. But there's so much red tape and so much lax on wanting to do things and be involved that nothing ever really gets done, you know? And also, a couple of years ago, NYCHA wanted to get out of the community center. So they gave away a lot of the community centers to a third party. Now, I know some of them are still there, but I don't know if they're actually being run and maintained by NYCHA, or if in fact they are being run by third party people. And I think that's something we should look at those developments that have community centers.
So I couldn't be at the walkthrough Saturday. I was there yesterday. And I also attended the TA meeting. You know, Diane was more than gracious. So there is money, and this was confirmed by Councilmember Yao. There is money sitting in escrow to fix that community.
That's what I had heard, yeah.
That it's literally been sitting there for over 4 years, and it's just when this administration came in, they put a stop. And it wasn't necessarily directly the mayor, but it was also a function of NYCHA saying, well, until we have money for all these other capital improvements, we don't want to do anything with that center.
And therein, that's the problem.
Which is like a
That's the
stupid
problem.
way of looking at it, like.
Mhm.
Because in the meantime, the money's just sitting there.
And
Yeah.
not to mention your business costs.
It's gonna be more, that money's not gonna be
Yeah.
carrying,
The
yeah,
costs
yeah.
keep getting more expensive the
Mhm.
longer.
The
you go.
money's not gonna go as far as it.
Right now with
yeah.
tariffs, like, the price is through the roof, so you know what?
Oh,
That
you're right.
money's probably not gonna be anywhere near enough. But yeah, at this point, it's systemic. Those, you're right, the playgrounds, they were like the most random assortment of things
Mhm.
in that.
It's like a hoarder using a room in their house to just,
Right.
you know, I'm not sure, but you know,
Just
just
put
put
stuff
stuff
there.
like,
Yeah.
and except this is out in the open, so everyone can see it. And you know, another thing she said, and this was about the apartments,
Mhm.
some people have decided to take it into their own hands to fix their apartment. What apparently happens then is NYCHA comes in, and if they have a leak or something, like, oh, let's say your cabinet was no good.
Right.
So you went and you said,
Bought
okay, you know what, I'm gonna go to Home Depot and I'm gonna buy a cabinet, right?
They won't
Just
touch
take the cabinet out and put a new cabinet in. Then, let's say a year from then, you have a plumbing issue, totally unrelated to the cabinet you put in.
Mhm.
They won't touch it because
They
you
won't
touched
touch
your cabinet.
No, they won't.
Yes, that's what they,
They won't.
so
I
it's,
have my own stuff like stove, refrigerator. The only thing I didn't do was cabinets because of that issue, but I have my own sink and stuff in the bathroom. And Lord, if it gets stopped up or there's a leak, they come in, they're like, I'm not, and then they do this. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, yeah, that's what they said to me.
There's liability, you
Yeah.
know, and it's not, you know, in this gray area of needing things functional, right? More
Mhm.
than functional, livable, right? That's gotta be allowable in some way, at the same time, understanding the sort of worker's perspective of how plumbing works, right? And if there's a connection point to a new sink that's an outside part, then that with old pipes, you know, it may cause a set of situations that they have nothing to do with, but because they were the last ones to touch it, then all of a sudden so it's,
Right.
the issue though that you're bringing up,
Mhm.
that tenants do their own work,
Mhm.
which then, makes repairs prohibited essentially from a NYCHA work order perspective.
Mhm.
That's a huge issue
It
that,
is.
you know, how do you even bring that up? It's not that anybody's doing the wrong thing. You're doing what you need to do to sort of live.
Right.
You know, so where do you go from where we're at as a general condition that is common? NYCHA may not, I mean, they know about it, but they don't know, you know, how to fix it, so.
I will say, and so we're not here all night because we're all making great points that, we went to Washington Houses, I
Mhm.
believe. I had some questions, more specific, but then also like process related, like, so we sit here, right? And maybe there is nothing like that money's in escrow or, people are doing their own repairs, like, who can we talk to get a better understanding? Who can we get? And I was told there was a point of contact. I don't want to get in, I'm not trying to create it. And I was like, here, can you ask these questions for me, forward it to this person? I haven't gone, I don't know if the questions ever got sent, I don't know. So the next step is to say, well, since those questions aren't getting sent there, like, can I have that contact directly so that we can, as a committee, have that conversation directly, right? So I don't see anyone there, unless maybe it was like, yeah, I heard a buzz, but so, and I say this because it's like sometimes where do we even start? And then we're chasing our own tail, running around in a circle. It'd be nice to, I forgot what the name of the person is, but there is a point of contact. There is
Mhm.
somebody there, and to
Send me the questions.
okay, yeah, I mean, like, for one, I guess my thing is like, makes sense of why that money should be sitting in escrow, you know what I mean? Like,
It feels, and those of you that have served in parks, you understand this pain, how the parks department won't start a project until it's fully funded.
right,
So sometimes it takes like 10 years.
right, because they gotta have all of it.
Yeah, so like, it's almost like NYCHA's taking that same, theory of how to deliver services on some of their projects.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
And if the least we can do is call them out for making no sense and just being like, say it to my face, tell me why, but seriously, like, like, here's the thing, it's like, really, how do you, Jessica, you made a good point, but really, how do you go tell someone, well, your cabinets are falling apart, yeah, but don't fix them, because if you do,
25 years.
yeah, I don't know how do you really have these conversations?
I think what we have to do is, like I was saying last time, is to follow the process of how they make repairs. Follow that ticket number. Give
There's
them-
too many.
Okay, so
But
let me help you out here.
Okay.
right? So let me help you out here. So a resident has an issue,
Right.
right? They create a ticket
Right.
through the call center,
Right.
right? The call center takes that ticket, puts it in the system. The
Right.
system is automatically sent to your development, right? Your supervisors get those tickets, and then in order of priority, is how they determine when and how something gets done,
Okay.
right? I just happen to be fortunate that I have a very good relationship with my supervisors and management team.
Mhm.
So, if a resident has an issue, I try to get it fixed as much as possible, and most times we can get them done,
And
They also have the app, and the app gives you also a date that
Yeah,
they can schedule you, but if it's a contractor that is done, then it goes to the neighborhood planning. So that's how that goes, but I bug the neighborhood planning.
so do
And
I
I
don't mess with them, I go right over top of them.
But.
But I think a lot of it too has to do with TAs, right? Because
But sometimes.
we are volunteers, but we do have some strength, right? And I think if we had good relationships with the people on the ground who do the actual work, things would get done faster and better. Because I never seem to have too much trouble getting stuff done at my development. And granted, I'm a small development, it's only 4 buildings, but I never understand how some TAs are always complaining that people have had this issue for years and years and years, and nothing gets this. So my question is, what are you doing? What are you doing to help expedite this? What are you doing to talk to your supervisor and your management team on the ground? You know, what relationship do you have in order to get these things done? You know?
Can I just
Like we
add?
had a gas leak, right? Within 24 hours, the gas was shut off and everybody had a hot plate.
They don't give you crock pots too?
No,
Oh, we get.
yeah, I know. I was.
Crock pots.
So I heard.
Dawn,
I'm trying to get crock pots now, so, but yeah.
Dawn,
I was gonna say this earlier, and then I was gonna put it in the chat, but the chat is turned off. But I just want to point something out, just having worked at NYCHA developments all throughout all the 5 boroughs, whether it's Census or Hurricane Sandy. Christina Lopez is a kind of a unicorn when it comes to TA presidents. And I just want to shout that out because I've worked with a lot of TA presidents. I'm sorry, I said it wrong. I'm sorry. But I've worked with TA presidents all throughout the 5 boroughs. And what you've done with your garden, the way that you communicate with your staff, the way you help when, you know, there's someone passes away. I mean, that is really exceptional. The way that you have built these relationships needs to be studied. And I agree, Adim, with what you said earlier about how are people not getting paid for the work and the leadership, you know, that they're putting into this. I mean, I know during the pandemic that there was TA presidents who took all their funds and put them towards PPE or put them towards food and then didn't get reimbursed. And so, you know, I just feel like, you know, next time we speak to NYCHA, if we get to speak with I'm sorry, the commissioner who I used to work for, they need to do a better job of recognizing TAs that do like what Christina is doing. And I don't know, I mean, Candy, you've been around for a long time and I know you do a ton of stuff and you've been very involved, but it's time for you guys to start getting some recognition and some extra money. So that's my 2 cents. But if you want, and I know I talk a lot, but you could turn the chat on and I'll just shout people out in the chat so I don't interrupt the conversation.
you could talk. You're not interrupting. You're part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Jackie Roberts.
Well, I was actually gonna ask you go ahead.
And to the Association President, Ms. Birdie Glenn, who's been around for quite a number of years.
Birdie
But she's
Glenn.
very active in terms of addressing residents and their complaints. And she has a very good rapport with the manager and the superintendent. So usually when we have our meetings, she leaves the floor open for complaints. And the superintendent and manager are there. And they take down whatever it is. And then she follows up to making sure they do it. And then also the residents needs to be more responsible too. Because while she takes the complaint and have the superintendent work on it, people don't follow up themselves to make sure. They'll come back and say, this hasn't happened, that hasn't happened. So it's both ways. And like I said, most of the time with ours, you know, we're pretty on top of it. It's the residents that need to be more active in terms of solving this. And then you talk about the community center. As far as I know, the one that we have is run by Harbor Scan.
Scan Harbor.
Yeah.
They're also the ones that wag.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then dancers. So
And look, they're not a bad organization. I mean, Lou Sargent has been doing great work. It's just like they're working within confines that.
Yeah.
It's kind of bad. Like,
This the ones gonna get worse.
And just like, again, and you know, without, you know, knowing all the nuances or all this, you know, I'm just like out there on a nice Saturday and thinking like, cause like, why, you know, I split time here in downtown Vermont, and on the weekends downtown, you know, the local high school was open for whoever wanted to go in, beautiful gym, and it was important. I think back that time, and I'm like, I'm happy I had that, right? And I've been saying that for years, like, even when Randall's Island had the Gulf Center open and all this, like, there was no shuttle, no, let's teach the kid, let's bring them out there, and I think that's massively important. I think that changes people's futures more than anything. So just being out there, seeing this new basketball court, like totally, like, I'm just wondering, like, what would it really take to get somebody out there on a weekend to teach these kids how to play, you know, to have somebody out there with them, organize some teams, play some basketball.
I used to have, pre-pandemic, Michael Parker, when he was with Human Settlement, like, he would always do stuff at Wagner. I remember going out and volunteering with him a bunch of times. He left during the pandemic,
Yeah.
and that a big hit. That was a big hit to Wagner, because he's from Wagner.
Right.
He grew up there. And they always, every weekend, him, Will Kelly and others always had something going on in Wagner. If you go down to Jefferson Park on most weekends, you'll see Will Kelly still has a program back there, but like, aside from that, there's this.
Yeah.
I can see that.
That's what I'm,
Yeah.
yeah. So the long, the short of it is, we're gonna keep the walkthroughs going. I think Wagner, I mean, I'm trying to fill in as many as I can. I know you mentioned, we're gonna do Jackie Robinson. I'm just out of town this weekend and I'd like to be present. So the following, whatever you want after this weekend, any other weekend works, Saturday or Sunday. And as always, I'll let everybody know, and I'm gonna just keep adding them. And it's not just gonna be Wagner, whoever, you know, we'll go back to, we'll make them all, you know, I'd like to try to have them every weekend. You know, I will commit myself to being there. You know, obviously sometimes people have to go away, whatever, but like, generally speaking, every weekend. You know, that in and of itself, I think is a good start, but I want to get these questions and then find a way. It was like, why is there this money sitting there for this? You know what I mean? Like, and you know, I don't know. It's,
You know, it's funny, it happened the same thing with Johnson. And then mine was,
Okay.
it's a Johnson Center, it was held in limbo for.
A long time,
Is it that
but still me that gave them that
You were
money.
out there with Melissa trying to fight to get that.
Yeah, but it was still me who allocated that money.
Right.
That's
And
why
then
that's time.
Melissa's fighting to get
And
it.
then she, finished it up, but because Ethel was on top of it. Had it not been for Ethel, that would have still been like,
But it was almost like a decade. It was like 2012 when that money got released.
when the
Yeah.
money, yeah.
We had already allocated that in 2002.
Right, and it passed. and-
Yeah, and the money was still in limbo, yeah.
Yeah, because of the contractors, that's why, and there was too many, they kept changing the floor plans. They kept changing
And then
a
the
lot of,
RFP was-
right, and then who's gonna be the contractor, and then, the tenants. If it was one thing that everybody was doing, and I appreciate, may she rest in peace. Ethel always made sure that we were always engaged, especially in the meetings, what was happening in the community room. And the community center, where they were supposed to have a center for the senior part.
Yep.
They took away with that. There's a school there for the kids. Guess what? The kids from our own community are not even attending that. So we decided that we're not gonna renew the lease only because of the fact that if you're not catering to our children from the neighborhood, why should we give you a lease?
Right.
When it's not our own children being part of it, right? So, we have constant meetings. Tomorrow we have meetings with the manager, contractor, because we have the boiler going on and we have, the gas rise is happening, so there's a lot of stuff going on, but every time we meet, every first Wednesday of the month with management, superintendent, and the contractors. But then every 2 weeks, we have our constant Zoom meetings with all the contractors and everybody that's involved, from NYCHA to the contractors, the management, everybody's on a Zoom, minutes are taken, everybody gets that. So we stay on top of them, and then, of course, we have tenants that on the watch. So making sure we're getting that section 3, which is a big fight with Reese. We need to actually talk about Reese, and they're not giving work opportunities to people of our community. They don't give us that opportunity way in advance, knowing what contracts are coming down the pipeline. And how we can actually, sit together and work it out to get everybody that's qualified to get these jobs.
well, that
All
came
right,
up.
she gives us a son and a dad, and why should our people go to Brooklyn when they should be coming? We should have our own in every valley.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and jobs should be accessible. We had we had, some work being done on the facade. And jobs was so far out of reach. I mean, I posted them anyway, but they were just too far out of reach, the requirements for the job.
Maybe some of the people, the residents, and you probably don't know, they got that out, the OSHA training that they qualify for.
All right,
the job.
I'm gonna just, because we're gonna, yeah, we have Beverly, got your hand up?
Actually, I was gonna talk about the REACH program, and I was telling, Loretta, the other day, why not use the tenants that y'all train for that facility? Supposed to be
Right.
section nine, why you don't?
I mean,
have-
section 3,
Right, you have that list of people that went through these classes. I know most of these, facilities are short-staffed. But they will have more pride if you working in there. That's your house. They gonna, so why not use those people once they complete these programs? But if you're saying that they make the qualification so out there that they don't.
they try not to give us in advance a heads up of what's available. But this is
Okay.
why we have these we take a proactive,
Right,
and we start meeting with those, the contractors. And to the point where we would say, we're not signing off. We're not even doing the sign-in sheet, but we're also not agreeing contract, but Nights Downtown, they show up. So maybe we can get Mr. Holding to come by
Or,
and we can
Yep,
speak to him. while we
that's,
do the
that's,
walkthrough.
that's the name I was trying to think
Right,
of.
Tony?
Yes, that's who.
He's a good guy.
No, but that's but that's who I need to talk to directly. I was told that certain questions would be get sent there and I haven't heard, so that's
Yeah,
who I'm gonna talk to
Mrs.
directly.
Wilson is very, they respond.
Okay, John, you have your hand up?
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody. I couldn't speak a few minutes ago, but I just wanted to piggyback on something that Christina said. Like with red tape, we're getting things for kids and NYCHA developments. When I was a kid back in the '60s, NYCHA basically created a schedule for each development every summer. And I remember in particular, we used to have a baseball clinic every year that was run by Hall of Fame Roy Campanella. And that was announced to us like in June, and usually he came in August, but we knew he was coming. But the thing is that now no one does that anymore. They've dumped that onto the resident leaders, and no, that's a lot to get to have a person do.
Thank you. I know we could go on about this stuff all night and rightfully so, but we'll table this for the evening. And then we got really three more things to talk about, not as long. One is, just so we all know, that resolution that we passed, that we update to send to the state. Angel, I believe, is sending that out. Let's just call it the next couple of days. We're gonna give them a week or two, see what kind of responses we get back from the state electeds, and then depending on that, I'm gonna be reaching out to each of their offices and pushing it. I don't see why this isn't something that they could do. So, we gotta really hold them accountable. And I'm gonna personally take that responsibility. So that's where that is. And then we started to touch on this before we went on the record, but me and Angel had a meeting with HPD today about the ANCP program. So I don't know how many of you are aware, but in our community, there are a number of they were till properties and now some of them have converted into ANCPs, some are in the pre-development stage. They're all theoretically in the pipeline, but there are one on 98th Street and one on 127th
Yeah.
Street that are not, they're in the pipeline, but by being in the pipeline, I mean, they're just like, at some point, they're going to get to them. We've been told by HPD that they're shooting to have all of these buildings converted in 5 to 6 years. Beverly knows this better than I ever will. I just had this meeting, when we sat together, I'd asked Beverly, like, what are like some of the major concerns? And right away it was like a lack of communication and transparency back and forth, right? And I got that same feeling talking to HPD today. They were saying that a lot of what they're combating, right? I mean, we can all have our feelings, right? But a lot of what they're combating is a lot of fear mongering and like, not even badly intentioned, but people just having the wrong information, including electeds apparently, just not knowing exactly what the details are and then saying things and they're getting facts wrong. Now, how much of that is true or not, I'm not here to judge. That's what they said. My concern was, not being the distiller of what the truth is and what not the truth is, as much as putting who needs to be at a table together to have that discussion. So me and Angel, I think we had a productive meeting. Angel, I think you'd agree with me. I think HPD, whatever your feelings are aside, I feel like who we sat with today, they answered our questions. And the second we said, you need to meet with these two, these two properties. They said they would. They said they will be reaching out. I told Beverly that by the beginning of next week, we're gonna follow up and see if they have reached out, set it up. It's not gonna be everybody on the committee has to join, but me and Angel have asked that we are involved in all those meetings so that we can see what's going on and we'll be there and we'll know, and this. Just an Angel, if I miss anything that you think needs to tell me. Till is not happy. That's what they said. Till is over. It's over. So anything that was till is either gonna become ANCP or it's gonna stay a rent stabilized property. Those are the two options. Apparently, in order for something to become ANCP now, 80% of the units need to want to opt into that. That's like requirement number one. Then then there's gotta be like you have to attend 80% of the meetings, like where there's home ownership trainings and all this and that. There's requirements that need to be met. One of my questions, just which I see is like, what if it's 75% of the units that want to, right? So that's some of the things. The other question was, what if it's 80, but the other 20 don't want to? They said that those 20 could still stay as rent stabilized. There are empty vacant units. Those will get sold at 80, no, not market, like 80% AMI. So 80 to 100, I think they kept saying 80, but so the way it works with Till, correct me if I'm wrong, it was $250 to $300 to purchase your unit. It is still that price. If you make less than 80% AMI or less, you still pay. If you make more, you pay $2,500. Is that what they told us?
Yes, $1,500. If you, from what I gather is that the $250 is almost like a down payment, and part of the rent that you still pay until you go to development, part of that rent goes towards that leftover of the $2,500 until it gets up to $2,500.
Oh,
That's now.
no.
That's,
The-
But
the-
that's not right now.
No, the purchase price, if you're under 80% of AMI is $250. The purchase price, if you're over 80% of AMI is $2,500.
and what they said was, in terms of the rent that happens, so the rent stays in place. Then they obviously, here's the other thing they said. What they said was the issue, one of the issues with the Till versus ANCP. Till didn't require gut rehabs. So people were buying their units, but they had already been living there for a long time or a generation, and they were in disrepair. And then there wasn't enough money, like to fix them once it had already gone that far. The idea is we're gonna relocate everybody, and this is what they said. They have to they have to relocate everybody to like market rental apartments. Then they will subsidize that, so you will just keep paying whatever rent you were paying at your unit, and then they'll make the difference up, right? While they're rehabbing, they'll pay for your moving fees, everything. That's what they said. And then they'll bring you back. They did say, and Angel, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but like there's possibilities where you might not come back to exactly the unit. There are instances where there may have been illegal conversions or illegal square footage. And so if they find that out, like, let's say you had a 1,000 square foot 3-bedroom and they find out it was really supposed to be like a 700 square foot 2-bedroom. I mean, I'm just giving an example like that they will, right? Well, like, I don't know, but they will factor in. There are also saying that they have to, I don't know if this is the right term, but like they have to audit these properties ahead of time to make sure everything is the way it's supposed to be, you know, that there isn't like illegal subletting going on or whatever, you know, they have to make sure everything is where it needs to be in compliance for it to move forward into this program. They said, you know, they did blame a lot of the delay on this, on what they say is misinformation, and then the pushback that they get from the residents, which they say that they are understanding about, right? That the problem with, I think, dealing with any of these organizations is it, and I'm not coming to their offense, but there's a long history of them doing the wrong thing, right? I mean, I think me and Angel are on board that. The problem is who you are talking to today might not be the person who was there, right? So they're I felt like they were acknowledging that. Then obviously, so they said that, then they also acknowledged what a undertaking that this is. The money that needs, they said it's the most expensive thing HPD does. That's the most expensive type of project they do. They said that there's a lot of stuff that has to get passed through city council, that they can only present so much to city council per session. This is what they said, right? Am I wrong? They also said, well, because it's a lot of stuff. I didn't think I'd remember all this, and I remember it. They said, that it's hard to find developers. This is not as lucrative as the other, HPD, other projects that HPD does. So there's a much smaller pool of, well, there's this other, one of the misinformation, I believe, is that like these sponsors or developers are getting sold the land for $1, right? That's not what's happening. They're not being sold the land. They don't own the land. Right. So these are some of, you know, you've been actually living this. I don't wanna, I'll give you 3 minutes to say, whatever, and I knew this would happen, and I'm fine with it. And that is why, okay, go, yeah, sure, thank you.
So I've spoken to Beverly about this before, and I've spoken to them, and I told HPD directly, I'm sick of talking about this. Okay, so Angel is sick and tired of talking about this.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, like I've been here 15 years, and the first year in is when I met Beverly and met Jason. Talking about their building and those conditions, right? And ever since, it's been, in my words, limbo, right? So my objective, for us having the conversation with them today is to get the brass tacks, where are we, what are the holdups, what are the next steps? Because I don't want to keep talking about this project. I want to know, you know, where is this, you know, where are the 2 remaining buildings in the pipeline? What is the plan for them? What's left to be done? What's really the deal with Till/the institute, right? So that we're not talking in circles again for another 15 years, because that's enough, that's not productive. That's a waste of money time. And I put it to them, I'm like, if the city is no longer committed to these 2 buildings, say so. If you are committed to them, say so. And if you are, what's the plan? That's it. I don't want to hear any more mumbo jumbo and rumors. It's a waste of time. And I said, these buildings deserve a clear answer as to what the deal is. And they laid out from their perspective what their failures have been, what some of the challenges have been. And I'm going to take them at their word, because at the end of the day, what I want is those buildings to get to the point that they want to get to. All the buildings, there's only one building. So every building in the pipeline is going to be gut rehabbed. All of them. So some of those buildings are going to, well, all the buildings will be offered the option to go into home ownership. And then they can make their decisions based on what them was saying as to whether they want to go the co-op route or whether they want to stay apartments. But even if you want to stay apartments, you get a totally gut rehab built, you know, apartment unit to live in, right? Which is good, actually. And the rents are, you know, beyond reasonable. Because they haven't, you know, anyway. So I'm trying to like not say too much to not, you know, inspire a longer conversation. And like Adem said, we wanted them to communicate more clearly with the tenants of the 2 remaining buildings in the pipeline. So they gave us updates on the other buildings and told us what the deal is with Bev's building and but
27?
no, ours is 27.
98.
Yeah, 98, yeah. So they're committed to doing them. They do not have a start date yet. but within the next 5 years. They will, no, it's important because we've been here 15 years.
Yeah.
If it's
With
five,
nothing,
yeah,
okay, with nothing.
yeah.
And I did ask them, I'm like, look, is the holdup on the tenant side? Right, you could ask them, I didn't let up on the
Yeah.
tenant, I didn't let up on HPD, I wanna know what the hell the problem is. So that we can figure out what needs to be done, and we can then know how we're gonna advocate here, how we're gonna bud the electeds and the rest of that. Everybody's been having a good old time, yapping, every which way but loose, every elected official has been bumping their chest and nothing's happened. Right, by the time I met Beverly, she said it was 20 years, it's been 15 years since then.
Yeah.
Right, so let's just.
Yeah, so make a promise
Let's
five,
just get this thing resolved.
yeah.
The issue with ANCP until, and some of that confusion, there was conversation here at the community board. Like 8 years ago or something, like there was a lot of noise from the west side about ACFCs, they have a ton more than we do. And there was a big movement, concerned about what can be done with those co-ops. And we learned through that not every one of those co-ops was acting above board. And that's some of the challenges that came back around, right? Like what Community Board 11 is gonna be supportive of is affordable housing and perpetual supportive housing. If anyone's gonna come to the table saying, I want to be able to sell my apartment for $5 million, well, you're shit out of luck at Community Board 11, we're not gonna support that. We're gonna support you getting your home and being able to own it and build some equity and sell it and turn, some sort of profit, good, and then the next person, the next family to come in, to be offered the same opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? Some of that nonsense on the west side, that's outrageous. Like, I can understand why some people would take an issue, but like, if you're buying an apartment for $250 and selling it for $4 million.
That's
great
I'm like, it's a great return on investment, but it really screws.
And I'll say,
So the last thing I'll say, sorry, Dan,
sorry.
the last thing I'll say is that we've got the commitment, this is the most important thing without getting into all the details, is that they're going to speak with these two buildings. They're gonna set those meetings up, they're gonna invite us, so I want to make sure that we are there to observe the conversation, and if there's any BS, then we can call it, and if there isn't, if there's clarification needed, then we can offer it. And then, hopefully within those 5-6 years, they're true to their word and that they're able to do it. Now knowing that, that they're looking at a 5-6 year window, it could be a year, it could be 3, it could be 6. Now we know how much we push the electeds to help move that Article 11 forward. How much we push the electeds to ensure that the Section 8 vouchers are coming. How much we push, within our own community to understand that people know what their rights and responsibilities are vis-a-vis these projects, right? That's a better place than where we were before we had this conversation, where we're hearing all kinds of nonsense. Frankly, I thought that ACT conversation 6 years ago was a waste of damn time. Because it was all about the west side. I'm not happy to be on the west side. I didn't care about the west side. I worry about this. And I wanted to get clearer answers for our properties. Some of our properties have since chosen to go into the CLT program, which is a win. Some of them have advanced in the ANCP pipeline process, which is a win. There was the hiccup with the Pleasant project, they ran into the shoe. I'm like, oh my God, I would have been mad too, but they seem to be back on track to moving forward. So we just left to these two. So hopefully we get this conversation with them. Well, hopefully they set up this conversation with the properties and we're able to join and, share the information with those properties and, get a clearer path forward. Instead of just kind of hunting and guessing and whatever. Like these conversations, sorry,
No, go ahead.
as far as I'm concerned, these conversations have to be productive. If they're just gonna be therapy sessions, I'm not as interested anymore. 15 years in, I'm tired. I'm productive, teach me and let's try to figure out a plan. Like, the emotional stuff was 15 years ago. I'm not doing that anymore. And it's not helpful to the tenants or the people experiencing the issues, I promise to shut up to there.
Yeah.
Did they tell you that on 127th Street, they were already in the process of talking to the residents of moving them?
No.
No?
No,
Cause I have somebody that they're already in that conversation, and I spoke to someone from HPD actually.
In Beverly's building or something
No,
else?
127th Street, that's where.
that's what building.
Which property are you referring to?
Okay, we have two host tenants So, one, is in the ASCP program. The other one, I don't know what why they're moving. What's been happening with HPV is that from the one who's not in the ASCP program, is a host tenant that came from a building that's part of the cluster from 129th Street, that 311 was part of. Them being in my building is the second relocation for them. Their buildings are uptown on the west side.
Okay.
So what's been happening under the ANCP program is that when a building comes into the ANCP program and they have host tenants there, they move them again into another building. The original tenants get to be moved by the sponsors. So this is one of the tenants is their second time being relocated. They've been out their building for about 12 years.
What?
Yeah, 12 years. In 2008, before the crisis, or just before the crisis, my building was going into we was in the pipeline for rehabilitation. Money was there. They came to us and they tried to, money was there. It's already allocated for the rehabilitation of those buildings. Gut rehabs. So when HED tells you that they haven't been doing gut rehabs, they've been doing.
No, we didn't say that.
Well, they have been doing gut rehabs. So our building was part of a cluster of buildings that were going into rehab in 2008. They told us, met with us, we did the designs for the plans. We met, the architectural plans was already approved. All my tenants had relocation apartments with keys, and I still got the keys in our office. All of us was getting ready to move. We was getting ready to move the first 5 apartments to their relocation apartment when the crisis came. HPD came to us and said, we're putting everything on hold because of this crisis, but don't worry because the money is already allocated and it's there for these clusters of buildings in the pipeline. So just be patient. We'll pick it up once this crisis is over. During 2008 to 2012, the program of the ANCP program came into being. When we had a meeting at the Dempsey Building on 127th Street and Lennox and 7th, they had all the tenant association buildings come there. Victor Hernandez was the director of TIL at the time. Yeah, so had the meeting and was telling us about this new program, which was supposed to be a pilot. And it's only take a certain, no more, I think it was under 10 buildings as a pilot to try this new program called ANCP program. That's when HVB told us that it was gonna be a private day. Now, everybody in the room was full, that auditorium was full. We was like, what do you mean private debt? Because we were under the impression the capital from the city was gonna do the rehab. They said, you're gonna have to do a mortgage. People freaked out. We was already waiting for years. People freaked out. Then they started talking about AMI. A lot of the tenants did not understand what AMI was. So at the meeting, I had to do some research. I'm like, tell the people, because they said, you're gonna be 80% under the 80% AMI. 80 this or AMI. So people was like, okay. I said, tell them what the income was at AMI at that year. They said a family of 4 making $92,000 a year. People freaked. They was like, who makes that? We don't make that, and there's 3 of us working in the household. How are we gonna afford to pay that back? So everybody freaked out. Now, this was supposed to be a pilot program. Next thing we know, they pushing it. And the tenants was like, why did we invest all these years to not have a 30-year mortgage? That's not fair. At that time, I don't think we even had succession rights. That was another issue, you know. Now, under management programs, you're supposed to be able to rent vacant units. That's part of management. They froze all that. Even today, we cannot, there's so many, I know one building on the west side got 25 apartments. Only 3 of them are occupied. They won't let them rent out the rest of the apartments because of their A and CP program. So, yeah, so I hear what HPD is telling you.
Well, and this is exactly why the main request was to
Right.
have the
We
meeting,
have the
right?
meeting,
Cause
right. And it has to be with the,
It's not, I don't,
not individually.
no.
Because they tell people this and come around to the
No,
next
it's
one and tell them something.
It's gonna
different.
be, yeah, it's
It
gonna,
has
so.
to be all the.
Yes,
residents.
I mean, I don't know if the renting the units came up, but the vacant units
Mhm.
right now that will be sold at was like 80% AMI. I don't know, it was something like a
Right.
2-bedroom was 230 something thousand. That's
Right.
the number I remember seeing.
Right,
That money will go into the co-op basically to have as
Right.
their, like in their reserves or whatever.
right.
So I mean, I hear what you see, like,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand that economics of being able to run the building.
well, it needs to
But-
sustain itself.
Yeah, it's the same stuff, but that was always the goal for the ANCP the TIL program anyway. We already knew that we was gonna have to restructure the rents in order to sustain the building. That was already a given. We knew that the rents that we paying now wouldn't sustain.
But they were
Right.
saying, their thing wasn't, and correct me if I'm wrong again, but like, that the gut rehab component is essential to the sustainability. Because the amount of money that this gut rehab is gonna take, and then let's just say a building was really in disrepair and you hand it over, like, they would, the money to come and to fix those apartments, wouldn't happen.
We understood that. And because, like, you gotta understand that while it's under the TIL program, HPD was supposed to help maintain the buildings. HPD supposed to have let us rent apartments because we had over $100,000 when our building was totally full. A lot of buildings had money in there where they didn't have to come to HPD on a regular basis to say, oh, we got a major leak. We need to fix that because we learned everything from HPD, management, taxes, renting, getting contractors. We have more experience than the third party sponsors and developers they want to put in and charge of us.
Right.
But yet they don't come to us. They have not thought about us being the sponsors, which they have done with some TIL buildings. And it went by like that for them to get their building rehabilitated. It was called the TIL 2 program. And they let the tenant association become the sponsors. HED still funded it 100%,
I know what you mean.
got rehabilitated. The tenant association became the sponsor, not no third party. They were able to partner with a nonprofit organization. And then they had a project manager to help go through this. Now, HPD has all the tools in order to get these things done because they have an architectural program within HPD. That's where we got our first plans from. We didn't go to a outside source that they had to pay for. This was in-house. This was in-house in HPD. They have architects that drew up the plan. So you didn't have to have soft money in order to pay for this, which brought down the cost of the buildings. These tenants, we hear this, we know this, we've been experiencing this, but we're not at the table until after the fact. And that's what pissed a lot of us off. Because we waited, we jumped through each hoop when you had different administrators come up, different commissioners within HPD changing rules and regulations. One of the ones was something Alexander, she was a commissioner for maybe a year. between 2008, 2012, that helped start this ANCP program. Because me and another tenant came to this office with her and Mr. Victor Hernandez, who was the director, and said, well, Dad, why don't you just give it to us as is and let us do what we need to do? And she sat right here with her nose up here. We're not doing that. And we've been fighting ever since. And we've been hearing since, who was the city council that passed away?
So we,
No, and, Perkins. We even went to Perkins' office, and you know how long that was? He said, oh, they getting rid of Till. Till is part of the city charter.
Well. We could,
So
no,
saying true.
no, and I'm not saying that she isn't, and I'm on your side. So what I will say is this. I'm giving them, till early next week to set, to come back to be like, we set these up. Or then I'll follow up and be like, they need to be made. Me and Angel will be at the meetings.
Right.
And, cause rather than you saying all this to us, I want you to say it to them. I want them to say it to you. I want them to say not just to you, whoever else needs to be there to hear what it is. And I think that this is at least a step in the right direction, right? Just like you said, right? I guess there's a positive and a negative, right? I wish that this had been done for you before I knew you. But at least there is this idea that it's going to happen, and maybe, fortunately, it hasn't started for you yet in that you can get to the table and be heard, as opposed to like, oh, it's already in the pipeline, this is gonna happen. So I think if there was a time to meet, it's now. At least we have an understanding of the fact that it's a 5 to 6 year goal, but they haven't even started with you. So let's get you right, which is ridiculous. I understand. I think Angel's sentiment was that they have really messed this whole thing up and dropped the ball over the years. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna have these meetings,
But we're here now.
right?
Yeah,
And we're gonna, and this,
Which is good.
Cause you can talk about, I'm sorry, but I'm not meaning to interrupt you, but. Like, you can talk about history on whatever topic you want forever and ever and ever, and there's a point to that, but it can't be the only point. We have to. Okay, now let's get the meeting with you guys and then.
We're gonna
figure out
push it
how we're gonna do
forward.
it.
yeah.
Cause we're not gonna be having 3 hour meetings recounting the entire history of NYCHA and the entire history of Till. I'm like, what's the point of it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that my goal here, through the walkthroughs, through this, is to just see what we can do by like taking some action, right? I mean, and it doesn't have to take much, like, I think just having this meeting today and getting a meeting on the books, and I'm not saying it's the only meeting, but there's a starting point. Now there's a dialogue, right, where you don't have to necessarily come, you can go straight to them, and I'll hold them accountable. I will. I am the housing chair, right? They know that. I will hold them accountable. If they say that they're gonna communicate and within reason, then they're gonna be held to that.
And these guys, so. You all don't know Victor Hernandez, you do,
Yes.
and you do, and you do, maybe the rest of you don't. These were not Victor Hernandez's. Right, like, you couldn't get the time of day from that guy, and you're all looking at the same plaque on the wall. These were not those
Well,
people.
they're
They seemed honest and
and
clear
thoughtful.
and thoughtful and, admitted the organization's mistakes and was laying it out clearly.
Yeah,
Like,
So
these
it's
are what the
like a
challenges
whole
are.
team,
Yeah.
team.
So the thing I see with this moving forward is that we have an understanding of what the lay of the land is, and then try to stay on them. When you're like, the benefit of doing the tours or the benefit of talking to people is that it's at the front of people's attention. If things are just left to delay, then they will. Whether it's intentional or not. But if you're on them and they're on them, like, these guys now know, okay, these guys are serious about this, and like, let's not forget it, and then we have to be consistent with it. And then, like, with every single thing that we do, be consistent and then wait for it to happen, and hopefully it happens, and that's just what it is. Like, talking about like the ancient history is, I'm not trying to be dismissive, but it isn't helpful. Like, we all know, and we all know, because you taught us, we got it. Like, you taught us, you did a good job, we know. But now we have to get it,
well, we wanna move
move
forward.
it forward for you, so that then you know.
Yeah, I
you
wanna-
have
I wanna be-
housewarming
yeah.
And, you know.
I wanna hear, right, I wanna be sitting here hearing, yeah, exactly, right, that's the goal. So with that
Like
said,
Jason was Dominican when he started doing it.
so I will hold them accountable. And I hope we don't have to, like Angel said, I mean, one meeting with them, I walked away feeling, cause I've been on this board a long time, we've had the people sent from HPD, and I don't blame them, who didn't have any information, were never able to get it, this didn't feel like that, like, we had
Okay.
questions, they answered them,
Mhm.
they, as soon as we talked about meeting with you, they were like, okay, yes, we'll do it, so there was no pushback on anything, so I can only go with, it was positive,
Mhm.
and let's continue moving it forward positively. All right, so we're on it.
Okay.
I'm
I'm with you.
yes, okay?
I-
No, I know that. No, I'm with you. I'm trying to get, and that's who, we're with you. All right, so that's yep.
Can I just say one thing? I agree with everything you said, and I also agree with everything you said. The only thing that gives me pause is the 5 to 6 year timeline, because we're talking about like new administrations and I think some of, and I don't want to rehash the history, but I think it's important to be skeptical, because the Great Recession happened, like things keep happening. And then even with the best of intention, competent people, like these projects fall apart. And so the 5 to 6 year, that just worries me, because we might set things in motion and then all of a sudden it's a whole new department, it's a whole new administration, whole new priorities. And then we're back to.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and they did say that, I think they were giving themselves a little bit of room with the 5-6.
Yeah.
They did say that they do them in clusters.
Yeah.
Right, and they have to get the financing all together, they have to get the Article 11s all together, and that they're only able to do but so much at a time, right? I think our mission's gonna have to be if they have 50 buildings still to do, that the next batch has our buildings.
Yep.
Right, I think that's kind of the gist of it, I think they wanna be done with it. It does not do HPD any good to have those things on, like, these are all properties that they came into possession of 1 million years ago, and they wanted to get rid of them. All these years later, they still got them, like, they're not motivated people. So now we have to make sure that they get it over the line, but that's a good point.
We have to be everything.
And then, like, we're looking at a potential economic crisis again, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that impacts everything.
Everything.
Christina,
So-
Candy, and then
Potentially.
we'll move to the next.
I just have two questions, right? And maybe I missed something, but I think, didn't you say the funding was already there? Right, okay, so to Jason's point, right? Things might happen, but because the funding is already here, even if something else happens, a recession, whatever, wouldn't they still be able to continue, finish the project because they already have the funding?
So I'm just gonna admit something. I know a lot of things. One thing I don't know is when the city says they have funding for it, what the hell that means,
I got you.
right? Because like what you're alluding to is just like, yeah, that makes sense. If you have the $10.
Right,
It doesn't-
yeah.
If you spend them today, spend them tomorrow, but
Right.
it just always seems like it's, no matter what the project is, like, oh, we don't have it. So I'm not gonna pretend that I know the answer to whether they have it
Gotcha.
or not.
Right.
I mean, these are things that you can ask, where we could follow up, but I also agree with you about 5 years. Things can happen, and these same people we went with today aren't even there, right? They could be- That's the other issue.
Yeah, that's.
All I-
So how long has the money been there? Because
Well, you said-
What happened was after, when,
Not there anymore.
Yeah.
it's not,
Yeah.
they out.
Right.
That's what.
Okay, so it isn't there, right?
But then they told us that they never told us that. That was a slap in the
Oh, that they
face.
never told you the money
They
was
never-
there.
And I've spoken to other buildings that was in that pipeline. I'm telling you, the people we had planned, everything was there. And then they told us, they came back, oh, we never told you that. Some people had it on report. People had it in their notes. You said the money is there for the total rehabilitation of the buildings that's in that pipe.
And now it's.
And now it is.
When we came back, we never told you that. That, no trust after that.
I mean, I wouldn't blame you.
No trust
Yeah, I
after
mean,
that.
who would, yeah, then why would there be?
No.
Okay, so I said Candy, then Dawn, and then for the sake of getting everyone home, I'm gonna move it, all right?
Well, really quick, I have some information that I can share from when the original bill
Yeah,
came on, and then you can work with that compared to what they told you. And then the other thing is that I agree with what Beverly's saying, she's saying truth to it all. But one of the monies that you all allocate, that they have on the reserve and collecting the rent, that's how they're able to purchase the building from the city. So for them to tell you they don't got the money, then what they did with your money, because that came out of the residents' rent. And they've been putting that on escrow on a reserve, so like that it can accumulate enough to buy it off the city. And then the city would then turn around and they will get their own contractors, not even if you identify one, they will choose their own to do at a lower bidding, to do, the whole repairs and the re-gut and rehab. So, you know, but I can tell you that there's no money, there's supposed to have been some money.
well, right,
Not enough money.
yeah, they
There's
didn't,
not
no.
enough, but still,
I mean, if you look at the number, right, but if you look at, let's just be honest here, and everyone correct me if I'm wrong. The rents that are getting paid versus what's needed to do a gut rehab, I don't think that money is.
no, but they should, if they're not allowing them. Right,
That's the other-
right, so but that's.
Well, that's all, right, I'm not saying why there's not enough money, I'm just saying that off
It is
of
what
what
it
they're
is.
allowing, there isn't enough money. Even if all that money was being put somewhere, it is not enough money. Okay, you said it was Dawn? Dawn. Dawn? No?
Okay, try again, Don.
Okay, thanks. I couldn't speak. So I just wanted to point out briefly that this is kind of one of my frustrations over the last 20 years is that we record people making promises and then we kind of let them rewrite history, and that's like what's stressing me out about the Second Avenue subway. And that stresses me out about, when we did the bike lanes and we were supposed to have, discounted car parking, monthly parking. And there's all these promises that were made, on the record. And I just get frustrated that we allow people to come back and rewrite and make up a whole new narrative, like the whole congestion pricing being based on Second Avenue subway. We were told they had the funding, and that was on the record. So we have community board members who are like, oh, if we don't do this, we won't have the funding. Well, that's not fair. It's not fair to keep pushing that narrative when people came to our board and said that they had the money, and now they're pitting us against, members against members, about who's gonna get this funded. And I just think that we should make sure we don't play into that, because that's just very depressing, and then, I think it is important sometimes to tell the history, because you do have people who made promises that are on the record, and they need to be held accountable sometimes too. So whatever Adolfo says and whatever they put together, it needs to be in writing, and it needs to be discussed with whoever the next mayor is going to be or whoever the next governor is going to be. Like, you have to be ready for who's coming in. So anyway, that was just kind of my stored up thoughts. Thanks. Take care.
No, and I agree with you completely. What I will say is that from what I'm hearing, right, nothing here was really happening, right? And so I agree about not, because you can't forget history or whatever. And I not even gonna pretend to know that I know what that history is. But I agree with Angel that, like, we gotta remember that, like, so I understand that when you talk to them, you might be distrusting, they gotta earn your trust. And no, I'm not gonna tell you when to believe them or not, but all I can do is get them to the table, right? There's not much else I can do, right? And I can hear everything you could say, and I can feel bad for you, but that isn't gonna do anything for you. So what my goal, and I told you, was to get everybody to the table. I told you we would have this meeting first, and so everyone can understand why we had the meeting the way we did. It was my call. It's not to keep everybody out, but to get that next meeting to happen, they can't be talking to 50 people. You know what I mean? Then they start to, so it's like, talk to me an Angel, and we got them to commit to that. And it will happen, and we will be, and the reason we want to be there is so we can hear what's being said and we can hold them accountable too. That way, it's not, oh, you said this and you said this. No, we were there and you said this, okay? So that's where we're at. Again, I'm on top of this as much as I can be, and, you know, I will make sure that this moves forward the way it has to. All right, so we have this on the agenda, but we are not gonna talk about it tonight. The intro 1107, so Stefan, yes, but you're gonna be, we'll talk about it. Stephanie had taken the ball on this and she knew a lot, but she has resigned from the board. She sent an email to everybody, so I'm not disclosing anybody's information, but so we will pivot on that. There's no, what?
I didn't get any.
Okay, it went an email, so I don't know, maybe it wasn't to everybody, but it's not private information.
Thank you.
Yeah, so. My point, well, my point being that she was running point on this and now she isn't. But what I did get from her, my understanding of her is there is no time sensitivity on this whatsoever. And what me and Angel wanted to know, and Angel found out from George Janes, was how much of an impact this would have on this community. And so it's about 109 property owners that would fall within this in our community that would be impacted by this. So it's not a lot compared to perhaps other communities, but I think it's enough that we should talk about it and maybe take a position, okay? But again, not urgent. Jessica?
Sorry, that's good. This is off topic, Ben.
No, I mean, you say whatever you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just, it's a point of question. The meeting we had with HPD regarding Till is separate from, it's specifically for that, not related to other conversations that may happen with regard to a district cabinet or other issues, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And then I have a follow-up question later.
Yeah, the point of this meeting was honestly to get, to get me educated on the details. I think Angel is educated on them, but maybe just to get more of an understanding and then to get a meeting on the books. That was really what our goal, and for our specific, I'll be honest with you, and I say this all the time, I don't really care what they're doing in the west side. I just want to know what they're doing here, and that's it. And so it's our goal. Jason makes a great point, 5 or 6 years. So the next question is, how do we make sure that the ones here get done first? That, or as soon as possible. All right, so that's part of it. So
With us at the
100%. I'll be honest with you, I don't want to be at the table if you're not there. Like, I don't even want that responsibility if I'm there. I want to be involved, but I don't want that responsibility. I want you to be at the table, calling the shots for yourselves and making the decisions for yourselves. I want that for, no, I don't want anyone.
That's not a question.
Yeah, I don't want anyone coming to me. It's like, don't, you guys, I just want to be there so I could see what's happening and hold them accountable if they need to be held accountable. That's really it. And make sure that it's moving forward in the right way. So there, Angel graciously printed these out. There are some I guess they would be informational meetings.
They're resident meetings. There was one yesterday. I'm sorry I didn't get to you earlier, but I was on vacation. I just caught up my emails today. So there's 2 more coming. And that's part of the, what do we call the process?
The Morris Park Senior
Yeah.
Citizens Home, that's on, that's Thursday from 11 AM to 1 PM. And then there's one at Jackie Robinson,
Harlem Pack.
Harlem Pack. Oh, and then on that topic, Angel's been in contact with, Chris Cirillo from Ascendant, because we've been wanting to bring them in here because they've been doing some of these pack transition.
Part of that.
Right, so we're gonna still try to get them to, I think he said it was his birthday next month or something,
Yeah.
April 1st.
Oh. So he's submitted to come in, we got to.
Yes, and then the one last thing, and then if there's any other comments or questions, but the last thing from me tonight, I got you, is, so we're not thinking that we're forgetting other things that we talked about. One of them was collecting data on property owners that pay what we should. So Angel graciously did hope. I couldn't believe he did them all, but he accumulated all the data in the spreadsheet, so we should all be able to see it. And his findings were kind of confirming what I thought from my experience doing it with a center, whatever, that some of their newer buildings don't have a lot of violations, and then some of their older buildings have a lot of violations. So I'm going to be reaching out to, what is it, Walter Rogers? Angel send me the information, I'm gonna send him an email tomorrow, and I'm going to invite them to a meeting here. and we can hopefully get them here and, start having those conversations too, so that we're moving everything, things come up, right? So, and that's what we're gonna do, we'll adapt to it, we have goals, and so, we only can meet so much, so just so you know, we're kind of on top of everything that we've talked about, okay? So that's it from me, Jessica, so Jessica, then Will, and then if there's nothing else, we will go.
Just wanted to, take the opportunity to bring kind of conversation that happened at Lanny's last month to the table here about
The ghost units?
HPD program, zombie homes or ghost houses. There seems to be, and there was, I sent this forward, I'm not sure if you had a chance to.
I saw
read but or watch it, but Pix 11 segment that was talking about it citywide, but specifically focusing on Third Avenue, which we know, and it's, it's changing already. But whether there is an opportunity to incentivize private ownership to engage with HPD so that there is more affordability. I don't know if we have the sort of voice or power to encourage that to happen. When those opportunities would come up, I don't know. I think there was HPD in the room sort of suggesting that they had programs that they were aware, but weren't necessarily tuned into what was happening here. So do we have that ability to engage them specifically to encourage more affordability at deeper levels by private ownership through incentive programs that may not already exist? MAH is great and will be a part of it, but if we want to encourage the types of things that have been the cornerstone of the apps here for a very long time, I think there may be a domino effect along Third Avenue. So can we positively, do we have the opportunity to sort of voice that at any point in, whether it's budget consultations or other FaceTime with various agency points of contact?
I'm not gonna, Angel would know better than me, but I don't put him, yeah.
I'm sorry,
Come on.
also, is there any additional helpful information? I did a couple of sort of taking some pictures and sort of pinpointing kind of where exactly. I think we all know where, but would it be helpful to put together like a one pager or something that sort of calls out? And the flip side is there are a number of buildings that have more architectural significance and are becoming empty along Lexington on those same blocks, which may be part of waiting out whether they have affordable units in them, I don't know. But it's a tough problem to solve, and I think there's open ears and there's a lot of hubbub, especially Larissa Ortiz, who is a professional point of contact, but was former commissioner of planning commissioner, has sort of familial contacts in East Harlem and knows the situation well, specifically here. So, is there an opportunity to catalyze or to incentivize or to encourage programs that may not otherwise, exist here? So
Maybe, right? I'd be happy to communicate.
No.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. I agree with you. I know what's going on Third Avenue. It's stores and then boarded up. And they've rezoned it a bunch of times and it's still stores and boarded up. So, and I think if you incentivize them, sometimes depending on how you incentivize, I know it could be a pretty sweet deal for the landlord. It can work for everybody.
Sorry, last point, I'll also just say, I don't know what it takes to get a new post office, but Hellgate needs a new home. If there's anything going on, let's
Change the
get
name,
new
it's
Hellgate.
being also Rivera Garcia, and they never changed it.
So can we say that?
It
Can
was
we
supposed to
make
be
sure that's
changed,
not?
so the Congress gonna have to change that.
Yeah, I'll save Angel on that one. that's a federal issue, we need to get the Congress.
Right, Ariana,
Federal
yeah.
funding for post office, but yes, I agree, considering I hate going to that post
Those
office.
things
I
that
was
need to be
raised in that
considered,
box.
if there's building going on,
That's my
can there be
childhood favorite.
consideration
PO
for
box.
that future? So-
There's a meat market right there,
Yeah.
Casablanca, yeah.
I have the worst PO box, PO box 13. I've had it for like forever. I know.
Did you
Yes, I
you
have
got something?
something very quick, just something to bring to everyone's attention. So, you may have heard, but HUD has been pausing, section 8 payments
Mhm.
by at least one day. Which is
Yes.
scaring the hell out of
All
property owners that accept, section 8 vouchers, creating a little bit of a chilling effect. And, you know, with how people think about it. I grew up in section 8 housing. And I can tell you that, you know, it's supposed to be automatic. You're supposed to be thinking about it. And if you're a property owner and there's even a hint of a delay, it scares people. And it's being tied to the freezing of federal funding. So what I ask of everyone in this committee is just keep an ear out, listen, read the news. If there's any developments, bring it to our attention because that's gonna have a massive impact and that continues to happen, it will have massive impact on this district. And also, for those of us who are in the whole NYCHA trust conversation, that is the doomsday scenario. The NYCHA doesn't receive section 8 payments. And guess what? The bill was written in a way that the banks could end up owning the property because the city does not have them.
Right, foreclosure.
That is what I said, you know, when that was being discussed years ago. So let's just keep an ear out and let's sound the alarm when we need to, but it's just something to keep listening for.
Thank you.
I will check tomorrow if the money
Would
came
that
in.
impact
Or
on the
bonus.
PAC program?
Yes.
Will actually allow that to
Yes.
go?
Yes.
And just say,
Yep.
Yes,
It's
so
done.
so it's supposed to be done on the first business day after the first of the month, so it should have hit Monday. You're.
That's why I said I
Tuesday.
check tomorrow.
It hasn't hit, it's tomorrow. Yeah.
If it hit because it didn't
Okay,
hit.
thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, so we'll go old business, we're not doing it we touched on it. There's no new business, Angel, could you take the roll?
Yeah, can I say something to?
Yeah,
that?
of course.
Like I brought up? Cause it is interesting, and you know, everybody sees the properties and has been seeing the properties forever and a day. I did watch the video that you sent, thank you, and I did follow the link for the LinkedIn post that Ortiz was it?
Yeah, there's.
Had posted. I encourage you guys to do the same thing. It lays out what the challenges, may be. You know, with regards to those properties, there may not be any incentive to move these people. One can only hope and get creative and see what, you know, what finally lights the fire to get these people off the bat to like do something. To address this, you know, scar on the community. But it's not funny. It's horrific. That for a myriad of reasons, these things have just been left to rot there. And there seems to be, because of the clear inaction, no motivation to act on the part of these property owners for whatever their reasons are. You know, God knows, but at the end of the day, those that suffer are the community. So hopefully we can get, you know, so to your question of that, you know, what can be done? I don't know. But get creative and come up with some stuff and put some stuff out there and, you know, God knows what. When, you know, years ago, there was an empty ball field on 112th Street, nobody had any answers, or they were conflicting answers, and now there's a building, people are living there, it's wonderful. So, and so on and so on and so on. So hopefully we can come up with something. It's very hard to get defeated because it's just so much time and so much potential, even just from what exists. I'll admit that with the city of Yes being passed, and now you can build to the sky anywhere you wish. If that doesn't move them, I don't know what the hell's gonna move them. Because, you know, the 17 rezoning went as far south as 104th Street. And nothing south got touched. City of Yes touches the whole thing. So, you know, who knows? Hopefully something moves them, but like it's terrible. I see it as an opportunity to tear those things down and build some stuff to house even more people, but it's a good point. to bring up, and it's an interesting conversation to have. There's no easy answer. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't be thinking of trying to come up with answers.
They haven't sold the air rights of any of those.
Not that I'm aware of, and
Yeah.
it's a lot of properties, man.
It's a lot of air rights, yeah, that's what I'm saying, it's like, they're literally just not doing anything. Yeah.
But what is their reasons? I mean, and when I spoke to them, because I'm under the impression that it's cheaper for them to just have the storefronts
It is.
than have residents.
I mean, are some of those
I think
probably
it's- I
rent
think it's a num-
stabilized?
I think it's a number of reasons, like, and that's definitely one, like, if you already own the building and you don't have, you know, a mortgage on it and you can make
Right.
your. Well, a satisfactory nut, you know, just from the commercial, then
Right.
what's your motivation?
Well, the taxes aren't being assessed because you're in disrepair.
Vacancy.
Yes,
Yeah, vacancy.
so-
No. That I could push back. The city doesn't give a crap if you're vacant or not. In fact, if they know, like vacant land lately gets taxed higher than buildings do. They're trying to actually disincentivize that, like you, because there's that, you do the property tax appeals every
Yeah.
year. And they don't believe anybody, so they just have their assessments and they do what they'll do. The only thing I'm thinking is, some of them rent stabilized, and if they've gotten everybody out and left them empty, they're not letting people back into rent stabilized units. And what's happening in the 80s and 90s, you see, there's a bunch of buildings sit vacant, then somebody comes in, buys them all, and then they build them up. I think they're probably waiting for somebody to come become the.
Second Avenue subway, they're.
Yeah, it's not.
Well, they're waiting to cash in on the second Avenue.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, I guess that there has to be
Candy
a
was a
cap.
preschool.
Yeah.
Last time.
Well, there has to be,
On 109, 110.
there has to be a catalyst, and that might be it, I don't know, you know.
So like, I'll throw out a crazy idea, because other ideas will come up, more creative ideas. My crazy idea at the end of it is eminent domain.
Right, right, that and
That's-
also,
that's-
can I
that's
say
gonna
something quick?
It's gonna happen with Second Avenue subway, some properties will fall into that.
But that's along that route. These are on
Or
Third.
Third Avenue, I know, I'm saying,
But the one on
Wait.
Lexington,
Huh? Who determines that?
Yeah.
Somebody with much higher up.
if you say it's unlivable, uninhabitable, and it's danger and all
And if
that.
you're motivated, right, Candy, because like,
Is that
sorry.
No,
I'm like,
I'm happy.
I'm trying to get it.
Hey, he has 1 foot in and 1 foot
Yeah, I
out.
wanna, to finish my, idea. So the MEC development on 25th Street, right? A big part of that was eminent domain for existing properties.
Yeah.
You know, those of you that have been around a while, there was the fancy cleaners. I'm not even
Right.
from here and I need fancy cleaners.
Yeah.
And that was a thriving, busy
Yeah.
building. It wasn't empty,
Right.
it wasn't anything. And through eminent domain, it was taken, and now it's a building.
Right.
So to my simple way of thinking, if you can make an eminent domain argument on something that's actively being used,
What do you do, yeah?
you can make an eminent domain argument for a building that's,
Has a Taco Bell.
90%
That's
empty.
it, you know?
Right.
But
It was because it was
Wow.
adapt. Right?
I don't know why it
There
was.
was a certain designation, for that area, and I don't know, I think it would be worth looking at.
That
if there-
wasn't 120.
I mean, at least, I'll piggyback on what Angel's saying, and at least dangle the threat of eminent domain on them to force them to do
Yeah,
something.
talk Cuomo or something.
Or can the city make an agreement with, the property tax and water tax? Giving them some type of a different type of incentive or abatement? You know, because a lot of them, the excuse is, most of them, they live in Florida. So they don't even know what's actually going on, and
They
they
don't
don't care.
care.
A management company.
Yeah.
I got one man, I try to talk to him about, look, I'm looking at his building and it's so.
But
It's
here's the
so
difference,
abandoned,
they
it's
look at
$10
it as
million.
they looked at it as an investment and a place to put the money, they're not looking at it from what's it doing to this neighborhood.
There's an opportunity to make more.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, but it sits there because nobody's gonna.
No,
buy it.
but here's the kicker, they have the right to make money, but they also shouldn't be sitting there doing nothing at the same time.
There's a common law, doctrine of, against waste, and that's the argument that typically is used with eminent domain. Basic property could be more of
I'd
a.
hire whole lawyers at the
No, but seriously, the doctrine of waste, you know, is a common law doctrine that's typically used by municipalities to push forward the argument of eminent domain. Now, is there an argument to be made? I think with a 1.7% vacancy rate.
Oh, yeah, it's an
There
emergency.
is,
Emergency.
but hey, I'm an outlier, you know,
But so, what, may I ask, I think, HPD would have to be involved and on our side for this to be good ultimately, you
Well,
know.
they were given after the acquisition. They wouldn't have much to do with it prior. It really would be, you know, council land use, it would be, the mayor, you know, the administration would have to be involved. I think Angel was right. I think there needs to be a creative solution to this, and if nothing else, we need to call attention to it because, I mean, people, I've heard all kinds of crazy, right? So I remember someone telling me, oh no, the MTA owns all that and that's all warehouse space for the MTA. I'm like, why would they put warehouse space above?
Wow, that's how well
Yeah.
educated
Yeah.
you know about information.
I literally looked at this person like, I'm like, do you know how warehouses work? How are we getting things in and out? But regardless.
All right, Angel, you sure you wanna go now? All right, roll call, please.
Dan Brihon,
Present.
David Giordano.
Present.
John Green.
Here, here.
Johnson.
Present.
Will Lopez.
Here.
Jessica Morris.
Here.
Beverly Pavone.
Present.
Cynthia Ramos. John Sanders.
Here.
Loretta So.
Yeah.
Becky Vasquez.
Yeah.
Jason.
Here.
Yeah.
Meeting's adjourned at 8:20. Thank you, everyone.
Great job, everyone.